Hello, I am Lincoln. You know what I find funny? Just how iconic Super Mario 64 is. Like, you can name every single level in this game. That's not a typical thing. Not saying that the game has too many levels. As a matter of fact, it has very few. But it's just fascinating to think about this game. And this game is put everywhere, so literally everyone can play it. This game's been like every single console since it released. Now you're probably wondering why anyone would buy this game so many times. Well, the answer is because it's funny. Look, this one's in widescreen and it's fan-made. They also all have their own unique quirks. For example, the oscillating platforms in Bowser in the Fire Sea and the Wii Virtual Console version never make the full way to the bottom, so every time it repeats the animation they get slightly higher and they can reach the top of the stage in which the game crashes after a month of playing it. Or the Super Mario 3D All-Stars version, where they upscaled some of the textures to make them look prettier, but only some of them, leading to really jarring gameplay footage, which looks really interesting to look at, but it's also kind of disappointing that they wouldn't do it for all of the textures. I have set a goal to play every single version of Super Mario 64, except for the original one, because it's funny. Some people argue that you're not getting the actual Super Mario 64 experience unless you're playing the original for the N64. How? Sure, all of them have differences, but none of them really change the experience of playing it. As far as experience is concerned, every single copy of Super Mario 64 is exactly the same. There's no personalization in any of these copies that make them their own unique thing. The original is no different from all the other ones. It just doesn't make sense to me how anyone can even think that there is a difference between the new ones and the old ones. Yes. And there it is, the last one. The last out of all the ports. I've done it. After all these years, I actually beat all of the ports of Super Mario 64. What am I supposed to do now? I guess this is a possibility. Well, I played all the rest of them, so I got no excuse not to. Good thing I keep a copy of Super Mario 64 in my pocket at all times to remind me that I don't want to play this yet. But now I do, so I wonder what it'll be like. I mean, it's not going to be different at all, but it's going to be fun. Been playing this game my whole life, now I'm going to play it for real. Today we are going to be talking about one of Nintendo's most interesting mysteries to ever happen. So let's take this back to 2020. The pandemic was at its height and everyone was buying Nintendo Switches so that they can play Animal Crossing with their friends. Also, the Super Mario 35th anniversary was happening, which allowed Mario 64 to be played on Nintendo Switch for the first time ever through use of the 3D All-Stars collection. Not to mention, just a while before then, the Giga Leak had happened, with some very interesting information about deleted stuff from Super Mario 64. All of these things led together to make one of the most interesting Nintendo conspiracy theories. So all these people who hadn't played Mario 64 since 1996 were coming to stores to get the new Mario 64 port. And once they played it, something just fell off to them. They all said that they thought that the version of the game that they were playing felt completely different from how they remembered Mario 64 being. And so many people explained different examples of how they remember things incorrectly. One very popular example, in Womp's Fortress, there's this breakaway wall which hides a 1-up inside of it. Now, in the real game, there is no texture or indication that you can punch this wall to make it break, but you can. Some people claim that they remember this not existing at all, or just having a cracked texture on it, like how you'd imagine if something like this existed in a game nowadays. But that's just not the way it was. More people claimed that there were different levels, different secrets, an entire boss fight and escape sequence that wasn't in the game. And it all led to this conspiracy theory. Every copy of Mario 64 is personalized. So the concept is, the game will change in Mario 64 and adapt to you based on your playstyle and skill level. It does this through an Experimental Personalization Artificial Intelligence, or EPAI for short. This is hidden within the cartridge of the game to keep the game suitable for anyone with any playstyle. You're probably thinking, I've never noticed anything like this before. Well, the answer to that is really simple. You're simply playing the ROM that Nintendo made. You see, this hardware is really hard to create, and so for every release since, they have used this ROM of the game that streamlines what the experience is like. Tell me, out of all the times you've played Mario 64 before, how many times are you actually doing it on actual hardware? You're now probably thinking, how does this even work? Well, within each cartridge of Super Mario 64, there's this thing called the Nintendo Mega Connector, which connects through the internet to access this special collection of code hidden at Nintendo's headquarters. Through use of this, it will send the messages of those code to this brain machine within Wet Dry World, and spread the new information all across Peach's castle to make your playthrough very different from how anyone else could have, by adding different additions. Stuff like riding on Yoshi or playing with 2 players in co-op mode. Stuff that you can't normally do on the common ROM of the game. This is strengthened by the fact that in the Giga Leak, which was a release of a lot of information about scrapped concepts for the games, using files that you can't normally find within the games, all this information was found within a warehouse in the middle of nowhere. So people say that that must be where the EPAI Central Mega Connector must be held. This is strengthened by the fact that people even say that they have seen the Blarg, Dancing Flowers, and even Luigi, which were discovered in the Giga Leak. The biggest part of this conspiracy theory has to be the Wario apparition. So, apparently, for some people, when they reach Dire Docks, and they're going to the hallway to the portal to it, sometimes a giant floating Wario head shows up and looks directly at Mario and says, "You want fun? Wario'll show you fun." And then he starts chasing you to the end of the hallway, except the hallway becomes endless. Once Wario catches up to you, then you will game over. It doesn't matter how many lives you have, you will always game over. And the game will no longer become accessible to play, as your save file will be missing and you will have to start all over. Some people say that the hallway does have an ending, and they can exit it to make it to the foyer room of Peach's castle on the first floor. There, a boss fight will take place against Wario, where he has laser eyes. When you defeat him, you unlock him as a playable character. Apparently, there are other ways of accessing the Wario apparition, or the Wario boss fight. By entering a painting with Wario on it, it will either randomly send you to the boss fight or the hallway chase. And based on information given from other people, the hallway chase has like a 50% chance of leading to the boss fight, so you might not even unlock Wario at all. Another thing that gives this conspiracy theory credibility is the fact that in different EPAI events, you get the ability to 1. Play as Luigi in multiplayer, 2. Ride Yoshi, and he has all of his abilities from Yoshi's Island, and 3. Play as Wario. Way before this conspiracy theory even got talked about, Nintendo releases Super Mario 64 DS, which allows you to play as Luigi, play as Yoshi with his abilities from Yoshi's Island, and play as Wario. And that's really weird when you think about it. To make things even more interesting, remember when I said the Wario apparition had a Wario painting you can jump in to access it? Well, there is a painting in Super Mario 64 DS that has Wario on it. And when you enter it, you get to the area where you unlock Wario. But what if Mario 64 DS doesn't validate the existence of the EPAI? What if Mario 64 DS is the EPAI? or at least what people remember of it. You see, if you remember something from your past, you are not actually remembering when that happened. Us as humans have very short memory spans. But something that we can do is we can remember the last time we remembered something, effectively expanding the amount of time you're able to remember something. That is why you remember important things more than less important things. It is because you remember them more often. So, every time you remember something, you're just remembering the last time you remembered something that you remembered the previous time before, like a game of telephone. Meaning, of course, the memories get fogged up with other memories that you don't recognize because the details have been lost from your mind since then. This is a phenomenon known as the Mandela effect, and unlike the EPAI, this is real. The reason why people remember being able to unlock these characters is because they probably did at some point in their life. They probably decided to play Mario 64 DS and they just forgot about it as the memories blurred together. This can really explain a lot of things. Example, it's really easy to find a game with a puzzle where you have to find a cracked wall and punch it to get a reward. So it makes sense that people would see that there's a hidden 1-up and think, wasn't there a cracked wall there before? No, they're just thinking of another game. Literally every part of this can be explained by that. And you're probably thinking, what about the Wario apparition? That is so random and out there, I don't see how it could possibly be connected to something. I don't understand what its source could possibly even be. And to that, I just need to show you this.
This is terrible. Boy, who would buy stuff like this anyway? Oh, what? You think this is fun? You gotta be cuckoo crazy. You want fun? Wario show you fun. Isn't that great, huh? So you like that, eh? Oh, watch this. This is even better.
The opening to E3 1996. It's as simple as that. They opened it up with a Wario, voiced by Charles Martinet, in front of the Dire Docks portal. And that's it. There was no EPAI. No hidden systems, no Nintendo Mega Connector, no brain machine, nothing like that. It's kind of mind-blowing that something that large could just come from a bunch of people misremembering something. But perhaps it's even crazier that such a simple game doesn't even need any of that to be one of the best games ever.